Welcome to the Mercury Podcast.
And where I found myself in my first, remembering the film, in my first regression. Yeah. So it was not planned, as I said, to be a regression in a former lifetime, but I landed to be like a soldier lying under fire, under heavy fire, and it must have been the First World War. And then I experienced really shocking. I even get goosebumps when I speak about it, because it was really, I was so much amazed how much fear and really fear of death I experienced in this former lifetime.
Because that was the first time you went there.
Yeah, I was, how you say, I landed, or into really the shit, or the big jackpot kind of. yeah. It was really intense. Yeah, it was really, and I remember when you say it, I was lying like on not a couch, but I was laying down and I had the eyes closed, and then came these impressions from the former lifetime, and I really could feel how it was to be a soldier and being under heavy fire, bombing and machine gun fire everywhere, and you see, I could feel, okay, I have the helmet and like this and so on, and now I can speak about it with amazement and quiet, relaxed. Yeah. But I would say in the first months, or the first maybe 3 years after it, every time I spoke about it was really like shaking my body again. Now I'm quite relaxed with it, but it's still amazed, because it was really so much, it was really like feeling like being there, but at the same time I realized, okay, I'm in a safe space with this doctor, nothing can happen. But then the focus was on this life, and I experienced really this traumatic fear and a fear of death. And so, not to go too much maybe into details, it was after we spoke about, he was also amazed that I went so fast, so deep to the point.
The meditation.
Yeah, and he said, sure, he also said that, and it must be because of my meditation experience in the former years, and also maybe in former lifetimes and so on. And so he, but it really showed, this is an example as you asked, that there was a fear I could not really define in this lifetime, because there was not really like a reason. There was not a fear for there was nobody I should be fearful of, by common sense. But when I saw this, then I saw, okay, there was a fear of death, strong, which is not processed maybe properly, and still puts some burden on this lifetime, maybe at least sometimes, when there's some triggers, and maybe it comes back like a flashback, and then we could work with it. Yeah.
And did you experience former lifetimes before that?
I experienced just one time a former lifetime. It was together with a friend. It was maybe 1 year or 2 years before the first session I had with this doctor I mentioned. And it was kind of just for fun, like many people do. But I was interested, and he learned some of it. He wanted to practice, so I was his victim, kind of. And we did that. But it was quite successful. What do you want to say?
That's an interesting activity for fun. To be like, let's remember what we did last life.
It's really like inner cinema.
Yeah.
But it's really, and can be healing. But I would add, just not to encourage like everyone, I would not do it all the time just for fun, I would always add what I said in the beginning, to make a good frame, a good space, a holy space, open it up, a safe space, and maybe set at least the intention, it may only show up what is healing or elevating for you in this moment. So just to be sure, because otherwise maybe if you have don't know, kind of karma, kind of maybe people even take drugs or whatever they do, and they go into these deeper realms, and maybe you don't have a good trip then. I can imagine this could happen. Never happened to me, also never happened to the person I was doing with it, but was doing these things with, but I think it can happen, and you should be aware of it. So don't make too much fun of it. But I think it's, in principle, it's a good idea because it's really, it's kind of fun, I would say. Yeah.
How does it change your perspective on life?
Yeah, I did with a friend the first regression. This was really a regression. I wanted to experience the former lifetimes, and I did. And then the second time I did like, I don't know, 20 to 30 sessions over 1.5 year time period. So every second week, every 4 weeks, so we did some 2-hour meeting, and 1 hour or 45 minutes was going into trance. And I experienced quite a lot former lifetimes, and also a bit of my future in my lifetime, like twice there was something like this. And it really opened up my perspective on myself, but also how I experienced the world. So it was really kind of eye-opening, like inner eye-opening. And really, I can tell you, because I went quite often in former lifetimes, and so I said, especially in the years after, like 5 years after, when it was even more present, and maybe I was still processing it more as today. So I was telling people sometimes, like good friends, if we were speaking about, I was telling them sometimes, I feel actually like I'm incarnated in this body as Devadas, but and I'm such and so many years old and so on. But because of this regression I've experienced, and the vision sessions I experienced, I feel like I have lived many lifetimes. Yeah. I feel I'm here in one lifetime, but at the same time I feel like kind of much older, much because I've seen so many things, and also had to process, as I said, with the doctor, I went right into war in the scenery. Unfortunately, but kind of fortunately, you can say, because we prayed for it, or we set the intention, because this was healing for me, so I could process kind of fears and other emotions. So this was the setup I needed somehow. And so also in other experiences I experienced, not always, there was also peaceful lifetimes, also at least once or even twice I experienced myself to be a woman, but maybe another interesting subject, to change the sex. Yeah. It's also an interesting thing which can happen, and in former lifetimes or future. But because I had to process many things which had to do with the depression things and so on, with the emotions, so I ended up quite often like in sceneries of fighting or war in different time periods of mankind. Yeah. And so I also said then sometimes, I'm really a peaceful person. I grew up being a vegetarian because of my parents.
Oh,
then I went to yoga.
Vegetarian. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I thought you started with yoga and then you became a vegetarian. I feel that's like the path of many people.
Yeah, it's the path of many people. Maybe later I can tell you more about it. To get to the point I wanted to say. Yeah. So what I learned about all this kind of warrior experience, or to being a warrior, this or that kind, was that I could really learn by going in regression with it and processing, to be in peace that I have been in war. And this is really healing, because you can adapt this to every kind of circumstances, because there also can be kind of war in families. Maybe they don't, hopefully they don't kill each other, but but just by words, by actions, and then you can see whatever kind of you are in war with or you have quarrel with, and you can adapt it and be more peaceful and see, okay, maybe some people, they like to fight, I don't know why, and I'm kind of involved because they want something from me which I don't like or whatever, and I have to kind of say no and even defend myself in this or that way. And then you can have more easily the perspective, like a divine perspective, just being the witness and say, okay, this person wants this, but I'm totally sure I don't want this like this, or he did not write to me, and maybe you have to go to court or whatever you do, and it kind of I could learn through this processing, all this war, remembering, to be more friendly with myself and also with other people if they disagree, if they kind of show hostility to you. Just this was really a great lesson I could learn. And also I told not many friends, but I tell you now, I also felt like being like a veteran of war, even though I never was in the army, and I never was inclined, and I never will be inclined to do in this lifetime. So I'm very happy to be a peaceful person and have come to yoga and being a vegetarian and so on, and so all the lifetime, and so it was never an option for me. But still, I kind of felt I felt like having been a soldier, because I saw all these experiences, I felt all these emotions, how you would feel if grenades, bombs, whatever, they smash on you, explodes around you, and maybe you're also fighting back, and also in former lifetimes with the sword or whatever you have, and you fight, and even you see, you kill, and maybe you get wounded or whatever happens, and it's really intense, and so it was quite interesting. So as I said in the beginning, just shortly spoken, it widened my perspective on myself. What is my personality? What is life? Yeah.
Do you think it helped you to remember those lifetimes that you were vegetarian for so long?
Yeah, maybe it helped.
Does it help with your meditation?
Yeah.
I mean, like, you are really careful with what you eat. You really, like, I think it is a part of your spiritual practice to also, like, choose what you take into your body.
Yes. Yeah, since 6.5 years now, as I told you before, I'm on a fruit-based diet, so it's mostly raw fruits and salads and some other raw dishes. You can make many things, even pizza or cake you can make raw, so it really helped me a lot, I could really feel kind of it's another level. And also I heard people or also a Dr. Robert Morse, he's kind of my teacher for fruit-based diet and detox. I also attended some courses with him, so some trainings, online trainings I made with him. As a detox specialist, I became, and he had a lot of encounters with people like patients come to him, clients who wanted to heal, and sometimes people come even to him because they are so sick and they are on a high meat diet and they are pumped full with different medical drugs, whatever they do, maybe they had radiation therapy, whatever they had, and do chemotherapy, whatever heavy things put in the body, and he begins to detox them, and the first thing he always says is, go on a fruit-based diet, especially if you are such sick person, as you seem to be right now, because otherwise it's really hard if you're not at least totally raw. So it's not fast enough to detox. And if you have severe conditions, you want to have a quite fast detox. But by this experience, he says, like, he never experienced somebody who was not at least somehow getting more spiritual aware on a food-based diet in all these years.
And it is because it's so full of prana, the food that you eat, and then it kind of gives you the energy to get the new insights.
Yeah.
Or do you think it's more just like removing the blockages that were there before?
Yeah, that's another good point. I think it's both. You remove blockages in the body, so in the lymphatic system, in the digestive system, wherever it is. And also it's all interconnected with the chakras, so with the astral body or energetic body. So, and this will also be cleaned and it will be enhanced because, you can see it like this, like the food we eat in 3 dimensions or 4 dimensions, you can smell it, taste it and so on, but there's also like a subtle dimension to it, like an energetic dimension. And you can understand it like this, I would say, because every food on the planet, normally it needs sunlight. So the main energy comes from the sun. And then all the ingredients, they can prosper, they can flower and make a fruit, for example. And this is what you are eating, but without sunlight, without the prana, the energy of the sun, it would not be any food on the planet, And so you can also say you are not eating alone the material ingredients the food is made of, but also the sunlight, which is processed. And then we call it maybe prana or life force, and you also eat that. And this is also what nourishes your subtle bodies. And then it's best to have food as fresh as possible, as fresh as possible at least. And I would say as plant-based as possible. And the next step would be, I would say, as fruit-based as possible and as raw as possible. Because if you cook it, you lower the vibration. You were asking me before because I said, true, I was vegetarian all my life because my parents have been vegetarian. So,
Lucky you.
It's really, I'm really thankful for this. That is really a good thing I inherited from my parents, I would say. Especially from my father, from his lineage, so to say, this inspiration came.
And now I feel there are many vegetarians, but when you were born, it was not so common in Germany.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. So I'm born in 1983. So, and then a few years ago, the information came to me that in this point of time, in my birth year, it was like 40 years ago, about 2 out of 1,000 have been a vegetarian in Germany.
Oh, and I think Germany is India, of course, I guess the number 1 country when it comes to vegetarians. But then I think Germany is also quite a lot.
Yeah, pretty good. I think pretty on the top, I would say. Yeah. But I would say the next step is people, and I can also see it in the last years, going even more. Now they went more on vegan. In the last maybe 10 years especially. And also you can buy everywhere in every supermarket, at least in Europe, you can buy some vegan stuff.
Yeah, that's super new.
With a former girlfriend, we started then, it was about 2008 or 9 or something, this must have been. We started to go half a year being vegan, but not 100%. So I tried to avoid them, but sometimes if something smiled to me, some dishes I like, then I use maybe some cream, some whatever from milk. But in this lifetime, because we spoke so much more lifetimes, I mean, in this former time, in these years, as you say, it was really kind of not so easy, even when you go to organic stores to get really the good alternatives for vegans.
And did your parents also meditate, or how did you get into meditation?
My father, he also grew up vegetarian, but not out of spiritual reasons. My grandfather, as his kind of many grandfathers was in Second World War, active soldier, and when he came back, he was not immediately released because he was prisoner of war by the British, and they hold him like kind of, I don't know, maybe 3 years after war. He was then released, but then he was on Cyprus, on a Mediterranean island, because the British have also been there. And so they fed the prisoners of war some, I don't know, something which was like lentils maybe, or similar to lentils, this kind of food. But it was not meant, this food, to be a food, but it was meant to grow on a field, to seed it out on a field.
Yes.
And it was conservated with some chemicals, or at least some heavy metals, which contains the heavy metal of quicksilver, of mercury. Yeah. And so he got, and many prisoners of war, at least in this area, they got heavy problems with the mercury. They got, I think in English it's also called yellow fever, jaundice is called in English. And he was really yellow after being released. At least this was the explanation. And then he went, like in his new hometown, where he went then after war, he went to a doctor, and the normal doctors, like Western medicine doctors, they told him, "We are sorry, we cannot do anything for you. Like, we give you maybe half a year, 1 year," and they sent him home to die.
Yeah.
And so my grandpa, he had started a new life by then, he had survived war, also the imprisonment and the toxic things. And then he was told, maybe you have half a year, 1 year, and you get your first child with with his new wife he found then. And he said then, like, no, like he told me, he said, like smashing on the table, "No, I don't want to die. I've survived all this madness, all this whatever, sometimes it was a miracle." He told me he had survived, it was really, he was on the edge, he was thinking sometimes, okay, now it's over, but he didn't die in war. And then he said, "I made all this, all this shit, all these things, and now I'm coming home and finally," and the doctors say, "We can't do anything. But there must be anything, there must be something you do." Okay, so he was searching for some other doctors, more in the natural field, like alternative things. And then he found at least one doctor, he was in this area. And I mean, it was way not internet time, so he had really to search, to ask. I don't know how he did it, how he found out. But he could find something, and he was giving some kind of seminars, some speeches. And he was healing people, kind of detoxing. And he said, go on vegetarian food, at least, and also go on raw food for some time at least to get healed. And this was what he did. He even went on raw food for, I don't know for how long, but at least a few months. He went mainly on raw food, or on raw food with some cooked vegetables maybe. And then he got cured, so the jaundice vanquished, the liver, blood tests got better and better, and then I think he maybe have survived even his doctors who gave him this death diagnosis, So later, when he was cured, he was asking himself, okay, maybe, I could go on with eating meat again if I wanted, but he didn't want to, because he felt like that by ethics it's not so. He felt better not to eat and doing harm to animals. So this tradition of being a vegetarian came to my father, then he came to my mother, then he came to me and my brother, and so we grew up like this. And I'm really happy about this.
It's quite special.
Like at least in my generation, I think it's really rare to have this constellation. You grew up vegetarian, Well, my first girlfriend, she also became vegetarian before we met, a few years before, when she was maybe 11 or 13, and she just also said by ethics, so she didn't feel like I don't want to harm animals anymore, it feels wrong, yeah, and also the taste was not so good for her anymore, and then she said to her parents, don't want to eat it, and the parents, like normally they say, is something wrong with you, and then she had to argue and to emphasize that she really kind of a fight oftentimes. But yeah, for me, fortunately, I never had to do this, so it was kind of easy for me. But I grew up, it was normal not to eat meat, and no fish and no eggs. And then I was confronted in the kindergarten and then in primary school, because the others were nearly, all were eating meat. It was not always easy, but it was, I think it was worth it.
How did the meditation come into your life?
So my father, he did kind of meditation practice, but not on a regular basis, I would say. But he had some experience, like with a therapist also he went to, at least 3 times he had a regression therapy made with him, he told me. And so he was kind of open with it, but he used like meditation more like auto-suggestion, you know?
Yeah.
Not like in a traditional sense or in a spiritual sense, meditation, just sitting and meditating deeply and reaching a higher state of mind like this. Maybe he had some experience, but he didn't tell me then. But he was not like the spiritual yogic practitioner guy, you know. And also he read some books like maybe Conversations with Seth. When I was, I think, 13, from 13 to 14 years, I began reading this book, this Channeling by Jane Roberts. And so I kind of was introduced into spiritual things and seeing things about reincarnation, kind of, I would say, by my father. And also by his father, he was also believing in reincarnation. So my grandfather.
Oh, your grandfather?
Yeah, he was already believing in reincarnation.
He was like really advanced with his beliefs for his time.
Yeah, you can really tell that. He was really... And the funny thing is, my grandma, she also then became vegetarian. Because in this time, as it was normal, more or less in this generation. My grandfather was never a cook, and later after my grandma left, before him he had to become a cook, but he never became a good cook, just out of because of necessity. So and then she became also vegetarian and learned how to cook vegetarian, and she was really good. She was our cake grandma, you know. She was creating the best cakes ever without eggs, you know, which was revolutionary in this time. And, but what did you ask about?
How did your grandfather? How did he start to believe in incarnation?
How it started, I cannot tell you. I never asked him how it started.
I wonder if your grandfather, if he got a spontaneous memory of a past lifetime or something like that.
I think he hasn't. At least I can't remember. So I was speaking with my father because he made some regression therapy at least 3 times, and he went into former life, also in a future life. But I think my grandpa didn't do this. But he and also my grandma, they were convinced just by their own reasoning and by thinking deeply and by reading, I mean, my grandfather, he was into, today we have Eckhart Tolle, but in former times in the Middle Ages, I think it was, Master Eckhart. I don't know so much about him. Do you know something about him? Like he was a mystic,
he was
Christian.
A Christian mystic, and actually Eckhart Tolle also, I heard him refer to Meister Eckhart when he was talking about his name.
Okay.
He got his name, if I remembered correctly, after meeting a friend of his who was psychic, and the friend told him, well, your name should be...
Eckhart Tolle.
Yes, your name should be Eckhart. So it's not his birth name, it's also like his spiritual name.
So there's really a connection between Eckhart Tolle and Master Eckhart, because always I was thinking it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Meister Eckhart in German, Master Eckhart. So yeah, he was a great mystic, and my grandfather was reading a few things from him, or at least one text from time to time, and he was really inspired by it. And maybe I think he was, I don't know about Master Eckhart so much, but maybe he was mentioning former lifetimes or reincarnation, because my grandfather also believed that the first Christians, or not only the first, even a few hundred years after Christ, most of them still believed in reincarnation. And also he went more deeply, my grandfather, into like what was happening before Christianity was in Europe. So he was really in history. He was he read a lot of things. Even from childhood on, he was very interested into history, and not only in the mainstream history, as we know would tell it. Even this time, he didn't even call it mainstream history. This is like a later term, which was then became more famous. But he was saying, like they normally tell you in television or even in school books. He said this and this and this is wrong. He said it was differently, he was always inclined in asking deeper. And this also, I would say, I really appreciate, and I'm really thankful to this part of my family, or my grandfather and my father, because they learned to think themselves and to ask deep questions, and this I think I inherited from them. And I think because maybe of Master Eckhart he came to this, and because also of the roots of Christianity, which were before the concils of the church. Most probably then it was the second concile, or concile, how to say it. They cancelled it out, the passages about reincarnation in the Bible. Maybe you've also heard about it.
Yeah, that was 543, I think.
Yeah, so 500-600 after Christ.
Do you know the story about it?
No, do you know?
It was in Constantinople, and they got pressured by the emperor.
Yeah, the emperor of Constantinople, maybe the East Roman Empire, maybe. Okay. I don't know more details about it. Do you know more? Just I knew about Constantinople.
Well, the church used to be kind of neutral about it.
Yeah.
And they used to be like, well, whatever, we don't really know.
Yeah.
But then the emperor really disliked disliked the thought of reincarnation.
So it was not so much the church, because they seem to be more open, maybe more the spiritual guys still.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Right?
Because he was into worldly power and he didn't want. And people who fear death are more easy to threaten with death and more easy to control, right? Like this was always, maybe you also heard about it, but this was what my grandfather and my father told me about the circumstances, erasing the passages of reincarnation from the Bible or the scriptures, to have more easily power over people.
Yeah.
Because in former times, like maybe the Celtic times or the German tribal times, it must have been more like I think even the Romans were writing about it, that they feared the Germanic and Celtic soldiers or warriors, because often they did not fear death really. If somebody is not fearful of death, it's not so easy to break the spirit in a fight, of another army, and so they were quite Yeah, quite interesting stuff, I thought. Yeah, was. Also, concerning that, I had one lifetime at least. No, I remembered 2 lifetimes being from a German tribe, or Germanic. Germanic, you say in English? Yeah.
I'm German too, I don't know how to speak English.
Yeah, I think the term must be Germanic, like Germanic or German.
Germanic.
German tribes, like Germanic. I think it's the term is Germanic.
Do you remember what everyday life used to be like?
The thing is actually not so much about the everyday life, because my first regression in former lifetime, so it was about it must be maybe few years after Christ somehow, I don't know, maybe it was about 2000 years ago. I was not so exactly with the number in the regression, so it just was like randomly, not exactly like just like 2000 years ago. So, but it was around Christ. I think a little bit after, maybe 100 years, don't know exactly, maybe 50 years, maybe 200 years. And then I was like I grew up as a spiritual person, and I went, it was interesting, because with this doctor, mostly I went into certain lifetimes the first time. Yes. Also in these 2 lifetimes as a Germanic tribal person, or as a Germanic person. And both times I was a man, but one time I was a spiritual person, like I am today, like really into it, and never like warrior or something, never went to war. Even it was a war full time then, because of the Romans invaded this area where I was. And there was some problems, also some killings I witnessed, which was quite hurtful for me on an emotional level, because I lost dear persons. So in the first lifetime I remembered, I lost my mother in the beginning when I was really a small child, and I grew up with some cousins or with some uncles and aunts because of that. So like it was the Roman soldiers, they went into, I was a small child then, and my mother, before it happened, she told me, go back to the forest and go to your relatives, go to your aunt and uncle, and don't come back. But I did come back, because somehow I felt, okay, what happened? And when I came back, I saw the whole, I also get goosebumps again. It was really kind of shocking, because I was a small child then, remembering, and it was really like traumatizing, like, all the people were lying dead bodies all over the place, all over the small village. And I would say mostly they lived like in small villages or like farms across widespread areas. So not so much concentrated in cities like the Romans did, sometimes at least. And it was just like a massacre they did. There was no military, no warriors like this. It was just, I don't know why it happened. The Romans did that in this place. But, and also my then mother was killed. She was quite young then, and I really loved her. It was really like, I grew up in a kind of a perfect world for a young child, for a young son to be. Like I was maybe 4, 5 years, 6 years old maximum. I mean, more like 4, 5 years old, maybe 5 years when this happened. And I really had a good relationship to every kind of villager, and they knew me, and I had really a great time. There was so much love I felt growing up, and so much kind of protection. And then this was all erased, like, and then I grew up with my, my substitute parents, like my aunt and so on. Contact with one kind of, you can call him like a priest, or like a Germanic priest or spiritual person, or like a shaman. Yeah. And so I had in my youth sometimes contact with him, and when I grew up and I was adult, like 20 years old or somehow, or maybe less, I decided to become also a shaman or a priest. And I remember it was not so easy because my uncle I grew up with, he wanted me not to go this way. He wanted to do me something else, And he kind of, there was some argument and so on, but I could solve it somehow. And also the priest who came then, he could help me to solve it. And then he agreed. And then I went away, and then I went into like a scholarship with him. I don't remember so much details about this. Only I remember is like after learning, I don't know how many years, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, I don't know, with this shaman, with this priest, I kind of was like released to become kind of self-employed, to do it myself, to be a priest. And I was wandering in different areas and giving spiritual knowledge and so on. And I also had a wife, but lost her again, my first wife, to the Romans, and I had to flee. So it was kind of traumatic. She was kind of shot by an arrow or by a spear of a Roman in the woods, in the forest. We were fleeing because we were not warriors, but somehow we had to flee them. And so she was heavily wounded, and she could not go further. And then she begged me I should go away because I was taking my knife. The only weapon I had was a small knife, or like kind of maybe a bigger knife, but not for fighting really, for fighting soldiers, Roman soldiers. And then I wanted to protect her, but she really begged like, go away, it's nonsense losing our both lives, And somehow she convinced me. It was really hard when I remembered. Somehow I feel kind of a sadness when I say it, because it was really, you watch some films, these things happen, but it was really like, it was heartbreaking, like, try to remember how it was. I think she was wounded by an arrow shot, and but maybe I could have rescued her, but then I would have been not, because they were following us, so I had to be fast, to escape them. And so I could not have rescued her and myself at the same time. And so I thought, okay, I have to fight and maybe die also. But then she said no. I think she convinced me because she said like, because we both were like priests, she also was spiritual priestess or priest, And she said to me, don't do it for yourself, do it for the knowledge we gained. We have to continue the tradition of this spiritual knowledge. And then I run away.
Then she died.
She died. I think, I don't know if I could actually come back to this area. Maybe it was invaded by the Romans. Maybe I even never could see or bury her body. Maybe it was like that. I don't know exactly. But I never fought in this lifetime. I never was fighting. Just on a spiritual. Just my idea was, okay, on my point of view, it was, okay, there's an invasion in this area, or with the Germanic tribes, with the Romans happening, unfortunately, and like I felt I want to uphold or make the tradition that it survives, kind of, because it's the basis of the culture, the spiritual traditions and the spiritual knowledge and experiences. And what although there were kind of this circumstance and some other really traumatic circumstances, considering Romans, and also some other things happened in this lifetime, I experienced myself to have reached quite a high state of consciousness, like, I saw myself like going into deep meditation and being able to connect with nature, with my surroundings to a really high degree, like merging into nature, into the woods, like feeling that, I'm really not a part only of it, but really I feel the whole, as a whole, all the consciousness around me, and that I'm just a small part here, localized in this body. Like I could really expand my consciousness in this lifetime. So it was really interesting remembering this too. And then I experienced a second lifetime, which was
I want
contradictory.
to ask you before we go to that.
Yeah, sure.
Keep it in your mind. Before we go to that, I want to ask you: do you remember any of the spiritual practices that you did in that lifetime? Like, what would people do?
Yeah, the thing is, also like meditation, sitting, but because it was more like, today we would call it shamanic, like because it's more connected to nature, but also they connected to some God principles and so on, and also I would say some knowledge of energies. Chakra flows, I would also say they had, or we had, and also meditation. Somehow it really like concentration, meditation, relaxation. Also like going into trance, it was important, and like the other rituals. I didn't see so much actually. Just I know from what we know today, maybe what was German tribal rituals maybe like, or like But oftentimes today, just to clarify, I would say, because sometimes today historians they say it was much about sacrificing humans. I would say this not so much was in the main focus. Like at least it never came to me. I never witnessed in these 2 lifetimes as a Germanic person this to happen or play any role in my lifetime. So I think it's just more a random occurrence, or maybe some tribes decided to do this kind of bloody sacrifice things. So what came to me maybe as a picture, sometimes also in a regression, I would say it was more like maybe not the same, but more like in Hinduism today, you just sacrifice flowers or some fruits or some wheat or what you've grown, some rice. And I would say mostly like sacrifices was meant like this too, also in the Germanic culture, I guess, at least what is my impression.
And then you had the other lifetime in a Germanic tribe, which was the complete opposite. Was it before or after?
I think it was after this life. I thought it to be, or experienced it to be after, because, but it also could have been before, but there was kind of a connection, a karmic connection, because in the lifetime I told you I could not fight, or I decided not to fight.
Yes.
And just to preserve and be the spiritual guy,
Yes.
And then it was good, it was successful. It was really, although it was quite some hindrances, and traumatic things happening, it was a good lifetime. What it was like really spiritual and deep, and this, I would say, successful and in these terms. And the other lifetime, it ended more short because I was a warrior, a Germanic warrior, and then, as I remembered, it must have been maybe the next life after this life when I was a spiritual person. And then I was born, I think it was in this lifetime today, I was born in Stuttgart.
Yeah.
And Stuttgart, but the thing is, in this area, the Suebians, I don't know an English term, but the Schwäbisch, Suebians, in German language, Schwäbisch today, or it was the Alemans, maybe it was the Alemans or the Suebians. I think it was the Alemans, also located in this area in South Germany. And this was directly at the border where also the Romans later, or maybe even at this time, they created a famous limes, the wall, like a borderline, protected borderline against the Germanic tribes, so to speak. I don't know how I grew up in this lifetime, but so I was like really kind of an opposite of what I experienced myself to be now, because nowadays, or also as a child, I was always more like the calm person, more introverted, not so much outgoing and so on, extroverted. But in this lifetime, I was really an extroverted guy, and I was a leader of warriors,
That's so interesting, how that changes from lifetime to lifetime.
Yeah, it was really opposite.
Because we imagine like, okay, this is my character, but then you get reincarnated and your character's like flipped around.
Yeah, it was really like flipped around. Do you also have had some experiences like from a lifetime?
I have some ideas, but I don't have clear memories.
Okay. Yeah. But it's really like that. It's really, it was amazing and kind of also healing when I remembered it, because it was in this therapeutic setting, this healing setting we built up with the Dorsch, and because in this lifetime I'm speaking now about, I had kind of a more healthy relationship to my aggressions, Like, to be aggressive, I would say, is a normal thing, but to be violent is not a normal thing, I think you have to, in this time also with Dr. Dorsch, I learned to differentiate between what is violence and what is aggressive, Because in common terms of language normally, also in Germany, but I think also in English language, you use, don't be so aggressive, But more accurately, maybe it should be, don't be so cruel, don't be so violent in language, or so you should say, but not, don't be so, so unfriendly also. But aggression by itself, it's a natural thing, it's just a force, the fire force in ourselves, and it's really creative and it's really good. And if you suppress it too much, like maybe by childhood patterns you learn to suppress it or whatever, like it was in my childhood, then you don't have a healthy relationship with the fire force in you, and with the passion, and with aggression, And so it was kind of healing to see such the opposite, It was kind of an extreme, and it also was in violence, I think, which I don't want to promote, but kind of healing it was, because it went in such an extreme direction, extroverted, like I go into a room, here I'm the leader, follow me into war, like this, I was this kind of person. And I remember I was not the king, so I was under a king maybe of the elements in this time. And I was a general, they didn't call it like this, but I was his, how would you say, I was his leader for war,
Yeah.
But I became quite famous. I kind of was quite successful in war. And they had to fight against the Romans, and as I saw it, we saw it as a defensive war, because we felt attacked, and definitely, I think also by history you can say it was kind of like that. They want to expand the empire north, and we didn't want it. And I also experienced, it was quite interesting, that our way of life was really different. It was more connected to nature. I could also feel as a warrior. Yeah? I grew up like kind of spiritual, really spiritual, because I knew kind of, it was not only like I believe I will be reincarnated, but kind of knowing. It was totally clear, like nobody would argue like this, our way around, not that you would not reincarnate or something like this, or not live after death. This was no question about it. And I grew up like this, and then I became a warrior, and I was quite good in this, fighting with spear, like throwing spears, and also with the sword, kind of a Germanic sword, and also with shields, I think, And we were quite we've been quite successful also because we did not really, I felt it, there was like no fear. And before, like, it was really like this, sometimes you see like in films, so like, but I felt that I did something like this sometimes to my soldiers, to my warriors, who were under my command, which was sometimes maybe several hundred, or maybe even thousands. Yeah, but mostly it was more like smaller groups and smaller attacks happening, or smaller defenses like this. I remember, like smaller groups, a few dozens or maybe a few hundred fighting. And I can say it was really interesting that there was no fear for death. And so in the beginning, before maybe a battle happened, if we could foresee it, which you cannot always, sometimes there's an ambush or something. But then I told them, like the day before or the hour before, I stood before the army, like, you know, and I remember also it was really like an army, you know. It was not so much like maybe historians say today, like the Germanic tribes were like barbarians, or like, it's a Roman word for people wearing a beard, so you're a barbarian. And me also a little bit here. So the person with the beards, you know, were the barbarians. And also sometimes Roman writers, they said, what we now understand as barbaric, okay, maybe some tribes were, but what I saw was really a well-equipped army, and not same as the Roman army, but really they could fight them really well. And also some interesting thing, I came to know about it, that there's the possibility that at least some Germanic tribes even had better weaponry, because they could use iron, even steel they could create, like the ancient samurais did. Sometimes they had also better equipment, kind of, or they could at least create it and had it sometimes in use than the normal Roman soldier had. And because I remember in this lifetime, I was going to my warriors before a fight and wants to enhance the spirit, you know, and their, and make them brave, you know, and I had to speech to them. And then it was kind of what I would never do in this lifetime. There was like, we had from former fights, we had some fallen Roman soldiers, and I decided to bind one up. He was dead in his armor, or 2 or 3 of them. And they were like maybe on a tree or on a pile, you know, like upright. And then I was saying, like, it was really like I was kind of making jokes, you know, like saying, and you see them, they are like we are much, like kind of a joke. I was saying, and in the average, we are a head taller of them or them. What can they do to us, you know? And I was saying, what can happen to us? And even if we die, we go to Valhalla and we see the Valkyries or whatever happens, you know? And then you will be reborn if it's your destiny and everything is fine. So you have nothing to lose. And today, actually, you see the sun or whatever I was saying, like in this, it's a good day to die. So I would be in honor if a spear would hit me. But okay, don't tell my wife maybe. So I was just kind of joking in this manner. I don't know like exactly the words, but kind of this I was telling in a regression. And it was really like the army, they were really like laughing, and it was such a good vibe. Like it was kind of a party, and there were these Roman soldiers piled up in dead bodies. Fortunately, they were dead, and I was going into it, and I would say we did not torture normally. This was not our codex as a warrior. So they were just fallen soldiers. But just to have like an example, and then I was saying how how you say, how bad the equipment is. And I was taking like my sword or my arms and ripping away the armor of the dead bodies and saying, this is rubbish, you know, and so on, and saying, and just to tell them, okay, we have superior spirit, we have superior kind of technology, weaponry or armor or whatever, but by the way, I would say the armor was not so much with metal or iron or with bronze, but it was more natural things, like maybe made by wood or by thicker things, cloth fibers or so normally, and so you could move faster. So this was more I would say in general more the armor, and this lifetime ended like.
Before you come to that, epic speeches, that must have been quite a show for the soldiers.
Yeah, it was really also for myself, you know, in this lifetime, growing up like really introverted and not feeling so brave, so to go and speak to people. This I had learned in my lifetime, or maybe remember also by remembering how I spoke to the soldiers in this lifetime, maybe to make them more brave or to make a good spirit. It was really interesting experience. Yeah, it was really amazing, kind of. Yeah. Yeah, and after a few years, I died in battle.
Yeah.
And as I thought, it was like the Romans in this area, they were quite, even though we were fighting them well and we could throw them back oftentimes and so on, and they had, at least as I can saw it, way bigger losses as we had in manpower, but still they had more power and they were more like the machinery of war was just running out in the empire, I think, and this was not easy to uphold by one or even it was a strong tribe or maybe a few tribes fighting them, and so I think we had to retreat, and they conquered at least part of the land of the country. And in the beginning when this happened, there was like, at one point of time I had to make a decision. There was always, when you had soldiers, there was something in German they call it Tross, so it's in English it's like the civilians who accompany and who support, you know, with food, water, equipment, whatever an army needs, you know. Yeah, and the Romans were not so much, it's also written I think in history books sometimes, they were not so pardonful, like didn't have pardon with even the civilians then accompanying the army. They were also like aims of war for them, sometimes at least. And so it seemed in this time too, and to make the army, which was not strong enough to withstand the Roman overpowering forces, and also the civilians, I asked, I think it was like 100 volunteers, like brave people who want to fight with me. And I said, I will come with you as your leader, I will be with you until the end. But most probably it will be a sacrifice of your life, of your body, you know, because we want like to uphold them as long as possible, to hit them hard as possible, to make the other part of our army and the vulnerable civilians make it possible for a retreat. Yeah, and during this, we set like an ambush, you know, and the best time to attack, and it was quite successful. I don't know how many. I kind of, when I went in this, I think it was like 10 or 20 at least. I killed before I fall, and then I was hit by, and it was really amazing because when I was fighting, I was really like. maybe you know about the samurai. It was also kind of fascinating for me in this lifetime, because when I was youth and a child, I made some martial arts. I was training, and so I was into this spirit also, and it was kind of this samurai spirit, because I did not fear death, and also the others hardly. So. And it was really like an honor for us to do this, because we knew in doing this we help our other people to survive better or longer. And so consciously we did the sacrifice, and although it was fighting and killing, which is by itself, I also knew in this lifetime it's not what I really prefer to do all my life, or what a man would prefer to do in his lifetime. But we thought, we thought it's necessary to do it. And so we did, and became quite good in it. And so we sacrificed then our lives to protect our other people. And then we went into this last kind of ambush on the attack on the Romans. And interesting is, like, right before I died, I could feel, so if you go into a regression, you can also ask yourself, there's fighting, you can see many things, whatever you want to put your focus on, but then you can also make like a time slide, maybe it's called. Yeah. You say, I want to go to next time where something kind of important happens, or something severe or whatever, which is worth to remember. And then came the point, so I think now I will die in this body, and then I was hit by a spear, or maybe it was also a horse throwing like a spear, and I was pierced by my body, like here in the chest, I think, or something like this, and then I was finished few minutes later, like death, or at least I think it was really kind of instant death. It was really like, I was kind of instantly dying from this wound. I don't know. Maybe it was directly into the heart or something. It was kind of like this, so the spear. And then I died, and it was really like interesting, because because I mentioned the samurais, and the samurais. And also because we had the spirit, everything we do in a good, for good sense, We didn't feel pity, we didn't feel ashamed, we didn't feel guilty. There was no feel of guilt. We just were thinking, we just do what is necessary. Unfortunately, we have to fight, and now it's maybe time to die, and so we do. And it was really like kind of a meditation, like becoming one with the fight, I felt. And when I finally was pierced my body and was killed, it was really like there was a pain, but in regression you don't feel really like pain, but I knew, there's a strong pain, and then I leave my body. But then I could remember really like the experiencing of dying was really like amplifying my feeling of unity I had during the battle. I really had the unity experience, like feeling one with my surroundings, with my body, with the others fighting with me, with my weapon, like there was no doubt, just like samurai spirit, they had the same, I would say. It's kind of a meditation, like fighting, become one with it. And this way you can also be quite successful, like from a material point of view, maybe you withstand longer on the battlefield, or maybe you can survive better, but also, it was really, and then it amplifies, so it was really not a bad feeling, there was a tension, and then came death. And then after death, there was really like amplification of my experience of it. It amplified like kind of happiness, and it was really like ecstasy. And it was really like when I had this remembering, I was thinking, wow, it's really amazing. Like that you can have these like really holy experience during your death time, even though I was fighting before, you know. It's such brutal scenery, such bloody things happening, and you would not wish anybody something like this would happen ever. But still, there was like, it was like because I heard also, read in some books later that actually you can see death as a door which is in the first, maybe in the first phase, it can be amplifying to your emotions, your experiences which you had last in this lifetime. And so in this way it amplified my kind of state of spiritual unity. It was amazing, and I felt really like an ecstasy, like becoming pierced. I mean, it's not so a good experience, but this was the only time when I went into death, like violent death, I experienced like really like ecstasy, like, and then I directly went into another realm and everything was good, and it was really interesting. It was really amazing.
Do you remember meeting anybody from this lifetime or from other lifetime? Do you like?
I actually, from this lifetime I met one person. Out of these 2 lifetimes I told you now, I met at least 2 persons in this lifetimes. Maybe 3, even 3, but this came later, in later years, and some persons I even met later. Or all of them I met later, after I had the experience. And then I was going back into vision, also with a lifetime, or I was asking sometimes, maybe I know somebody, or just by myself, because of some reason I went back to solve some issues in these 2 lifetimes I mentioned, as a Germanic person, a Germanic man, and then I realized sometimes, okay, this person, it must be really as a connection I could feel to some persons I met in this lifetime, But I never told, it never happened to tell them, because I think one time at least I wanted to, but this person I felt she was not ready, so it did not happen. I did not tell her. Maybe because when we are talking like this about these things, like I think many people some they think, it's really weird stuff, you know. It's
it is really weird stuff. It's still good to talk about it. But I see what you're saying, like sometimes it's not the right time, or it's not the right information for that person to receive. And also for some people they don't want to think about it, you know.
If they're not ready, then I think sometimes better to be silent, not to say things. Even though I was inclined to say it, you know, because I thought it must be kind of healing, but maybe they are not on the point to heal to this degree yet, or to cope with this kind of things.
I would imagine, you know, intuitively, like if your intuition tells you, okay, maybe it's too early to say something, then I think it's wise to listen to your intuition.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and then I understand also in former lifetimes, or like you remember multiple lifetimes you were meditating, and then you kind of came back to it. You came back to meditation in this life.
Yes. So I think it's connected. I experienced in former lifetimes, like for example, as the spiritual Germanic man, deep state of trance, of connectedness, of unity. And so I think in later lifetimes you can, it's like a pool of knowledge, of experience, and you can profit from it. But I think it depends, because sometimes I experience later lifetimes, like we see the linear lifetimes, so in later centuries. And then I was not so much a spiritual person. It can also happen. So I would say it depends what is your purpose, your sole purpose for this life. And maybe sometimes, even though in former lifetimes you might have come really far in spiritual terms, or in other kind of fields of development maybe there is still a lifetime in between afterwards, where you decide maybe to make different experiences in different areas, and then you kind of shield it out, you kind of black it out, the knowledge of spirituality, for example, or other fields, because it's not your sole purpose for a special lifetime. But I think for me today, because I grew up also with this kind of family, with my father line, ancestral line, I was inclined to remember more of this stuff, in my former lifetimes, which I did on spiritual levels too.
When you started to meditate, did you feel like, okay, this is something I've been doing before?
I began meditation actually, the first meditation sessions at least I made was when I was 10 years old. And this happened because my mother, she separated, and my father when I was 10. My mother, she arranged when I was 10 that I come with her, just to make it short. And it was really kind of a shock. It was really a shocking experience for me, like traumatizing, because she didn't tell me in advance. And it was really a shock for me this time. And then I really felt bad, and it was really kind of maybe the first depression I had in my lifetime, because I was speaking later years also. My father, he even didn't know maybe 1 or 2 months, or at least few weeks where I was, he was nearly, maybe he was even using the police or nearly, but then he was like asking different people, friends, and then he found out and there was contact again. But so then I just to mention this was the reason I went into a deep, really not a good state, in this time. But then was the brother of my mother came. This was at Lake Constance, where she came from, my mother. So my grandparents had their house there, and he was coming for a visit there too. And we tour at Christmas Day, New Year time, and then he was coming, and his later wife, so his new girlfriend was then. My later aunt, so to say. And so they were into Kriya Yoga with Paramahansa Yoga, at least he was, and she was into Hatha Yoga. And I was practicing, learning some, doing headstands in an easy way and so on. And I was kind of interested. And they were telling me about Paramahansa Yogananda. He read the autobiography of Yogi, so my uncle. And then we were I was telling him, my father told me, and also my grandfather, about former life. So we had, when I was 10 years old only, we had a nice talk, and I was really interested. And he was really amazed. I know quite things about it. And so then I was deciding, because every morning they would do some sadhana, this is the Sanskrit word for spiritual practice. So they were doing Hatha Yoga, and afterwards, I think it was even half an hour meditation, so quite long for me as a child. So, and then I said, it's so interesting. And then I asked why you're doing this, and they were telling me some experiences they had, and then I was deciding not only doing some Hatha Yoga with them. I was just doing headstands, some things I wanted to do as a 10-year-old, so not really doing a class, but some things I did with them. And also I had a mat, and they were and then they were sitting for meditation. And then I decided, okay, but they said we will meditate for half an hour, so if you want to leave earlier, you can leave silently before, And then maybe I stayed 5 minutes, 10, maybe 15 minutes sometimes, and sat with them, and kind of experienced at least a relief of my mind, of my thinking mind, and deep relaxation I could witness. But I was 10 years old, so I hardly found the words what is happening. But I had an inclination. I had I was feeling friendly. I was feeling attracted a lot to meditation. And even when I left them after holidays, then I said to my mother, "Okay, I want to go up more early, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes more early, because I will do some meditation in the morning before going to school." And then I was doing myself sometimes. I was starting meditation, but because I was alone, and also my mother, she didn't do it with me. She was not so much into it. Later, she also became more meditative, and so I felt, maybe because I felt a little bit lonely, and then you get up more early, 15, 20 minutes or so, or maybe half an hour even, and then I sat there for 15 minutes for meditation, and maybe doing some headstand or yoga, like there's some exercise before, and I did it several times. I don't remember on what time frame. Maybe I did it. I tried it 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but then I did not do it. So like on a regular basis, I could not start like a spiritual practice with 10 years or 11 years old, because the surrounding at home with my mother was not so. With my uncle and aunt, it would have been great. Just it would have worked. Yeah. But so I started quite early. Yeah.
And when did you come back to it?
Yeah, really. I mean, during my teenage years, it accompanied me somehow. So I sometimes sat down on some periods and did some meditation. Also because I told you I had many good experience with. Martial arts with the samurai arts of fighting. One day my older brother, he gave me a book. I think it was like a birthday present, a small book, and it was called Zazen, so like sitting in Zen, in meditation. Yeah. Also, I tried to see the aura, like physically, and I was buying a book, purchasing it, and then it was delivered to me, and I was really studying it and trying it out, and it really worked. Like you could see kind of the aura of the person with your own eyes, not only intuitively. You can also do it with intuition, closed eyes, but I wanted to see with open eyes, and there was a special eye training, to make it happen. And I saw something, and sometimes I told some of my classmates. And I think maybe if they would have told, I don't know, somebody else, they maybe some of my classmates would have thought I'm crazy. I think most probably some did. They thought I'm crazy or kind of, because I was always a little bit different. At high school, so I remember, I think at one point, one teacher, she asked us, has somebody ever meditated? And I think me and maybe one other person said yes, we did, and shared a little. But I was feeling kind of bewildered, because I was thinking the whole classes know the eyes on me, and I was in this time was really the shy guy. All my childhood and youth and yes. But it came to me quite early, So, and really starting with spiritual practice was after high school, when I was 20 or 21 years old. There I had some emotional crisis after high school, and then it helped me to survive it, even, I would say, or to go. It had a big healing effect. I came to the Hare Krishna movement, and I was chanting mantras for several years, especially the Hare Krishna mantra, but also others. And with a mala, like a yogic mala, like this, like one round is 108 beats, and on each beat you repeat one mantra. So, and this 108 times is one round, and I did 16 rounds for maybe 6 or 7 years each day. So it took, in the beginning, it took 2 hours a day, and then it took like 1.5 hours. So this was my my beginning, like 6 or 7 years of intense mantra chanting and singing, influenced by the Hare Krishna movement, which I'm very thankful for. And later I came to other traditions, and the next one was a quite meditative tradition. So I practiced 2 years intense, everyday, prolonged meditations, silent meditations.
That was the solar tradition?
The solar tradition, right, yeah. Where I also received my name from the solar teacher, Aravinati. He, kind of a modern rishi, as I told you, a modern seer. I asked Arina at one point to get a spiritual name. You could ask him, and so after a few days, or maybe 1 or 2 weeks, he gave me this name and told me I can take this name, Devadas.
I understand he was also in contact with some Egyptian deities.
Yeah, I mean, in this tradition it was not so much about deities. It was about enlightenment. And the tradition is solar tradition. And he also mentioned some deities of ancient Egypt and India and Tibetans. Yeah, because he had the connection through the solar line to really knowledge which is beyond many things what we know maybe today or what science can find out even. So he came up with some terms even he said it's ancient Sanskrit words. I mean, Sanskrit by itself is ancient. Or quite really ancient. But then he told us there was even forms of Sanskrit before, and as I read, even science says there was different stages of Sanskrit, even older forms. And he said sometimes words, he said it's an older form of Sanskrit, And then he also said to us some Egyptian terms he introduced later on. And he said, because there was also a lot of Egypt, there was not Egypt, but solar masters in Egypt. Especially one he mentioned, he called him by Egyptian name or by ancient Egyptian name, by the name Chahuti. Mm-hmm. But he said the ancient Greeks called him Hermes Trismegistos, they called him. But he said,
you know how the Romans called him?
No, I don't know.
Mercury.
Mercury.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, this I didn't know.
So that's like the 3rd time that Mercury is coming up on this podcast.
Yeah.
And like in the beginning I thought, okay, no way, Mercury is coming up.
Yeah, the name of your podcast by itself is
right?
Mercury. Mercury podcast? Or
yes, the Mercury podcast.
Yeah, the Mercury podcast.
So very interesting. Keep telling more.
So it's really interesting. The connection to Egyptian deities sometimes, and knowledge, and to Hermes Trismegistos, or as you say, the Romans, I didn't know, it's interesting, they called him Mercury. And also, and he said, like, the original name, maybe he gave himself, or he was known in Egypt, was maybe Chahuti or Chehuti. And actually, he told quite, which would be considered wild stuff about him. Like, he said, he also told about the ancient Atlantis area, and he said this Chahuti or Hermes or Mercury, he was actually a guy who survived the sinking of Atlantis, the destruction of this high civilization, and who gathered the knowledge and brought it then to other parts of the world. And he said the first part was ancient Egypt. Even before it came to India, this was the opinion of Aravinda. Whereas from the Vedic tradition, I was much into it, it also would make sense that it was first maybe in the Vedic tradition. But it's kind of strongly connected and kind of also, I would say, kind of nearly all around the world. In a few thousand years ago, there was maybe there was even, at least the knowledge that was widely spread about the planet, spiritual knowledge, and really wider spread than many scientists would believe or would say it's possible. I would say so. And so this Chahuti or Hermes Trismegistus, he brought this knowledge to ancient Egypt, he said, and helped to rebuild. There must be like maybe a planetary catastrophe, and it must have been like 10, 12,000 years ago around, like this. So after the last ice age or something also. And he said he was like the father of new human civilization after big devastation. Yeah.
And you said he was from the solar line. Can you explain what the solar line is?
Yeah, as he explained it, like normally the traditions is like Vedic traditions normally is like a disciple line, you know. There's the guru, the teacher, and the disciples, and the disciples become new teachers and have other disciples, and then you have like a timeline, like like ancestry. You know, you can say, okay, it was this guru, and then came this and this and this. So it's really a line through time and space, which can be recorded sometimes, at least. So it's quite an important term also in Vedic traditions or ancient Indian traditions to be able to uphold and to know which were the former gurus, you know, in the guru line, in the disciple line. It's called parampara in the Sanskrit terms. So, but this Sura Parampara Divapata, as he called it, also a parampara, so a kind of disciple line. It's like a transcendental understanding, he said, of disciple line, because there was not necessarily like a physical contact even to the guru. So maybe you received it in another way, like kind of more mystical way, maybe meditation knowledge can come, or through maybe it was different people and it awakened knowledge in yourself. So he said everybody who was telling and teaching and experiencing the truth, you know, and maybe using techniques also to achieve more of the truth. This is the definition, like for the solar line, you know. And he said the solar line also. He said definitely like Buddha, Jesus, they were also part of the solar line. But he also said he traveled to India and to the Himalayas. I think it must then have been maybe beyond India, Nepal and Tibet maybe also. And
was he from India? Was he born in India?
No, he was actually, he's US American.
Oh, okay.
And he came to this knowledge. So actually when he grew up, he realized one of the first things in his childhood he realized was he was not normal, like, you know. He was really seeing too much, experienced too much of the energetic things, and he could see different beings everywhere, and he had to get along with this kind of talent or this gift. He went via India to the Himalayas in search of an ancient village where he felt the inner call, he got the inner knowledge intuitively, or even he had kind of dreams or visions, and he wanted to go there and see alive solar masters. And as he described, he succeeded. He found like a valley in the Himalayas deep inside, and he described it like this, kind of magical, you know, like he said these masters living in this valley together with some seemed like village people, just kind of really easy life, like simplest life. One was also a woman, and he said this is like the last of the original from the Parampara masters, which were living on the planet right now. And they lived like quite long, several hundred years, maybe 1,000 years, some of them. And some already left, but he said you cannot find them if your consciousness is not right. So you cannot find, even in a physical realm on the planet, you will not find the right way So, I mean, many people also, to me, they come, maybe it's made up story, but I think as I know him, so, I mean, as a high probability, I would say he really was there. So, because, you know, we were speaking about imagination and going into past lives, and that imagination actually is a creative power.
Yes.
And so I would say the whole physical realm is just another dream realm of many, like, and it's upheld by creative power of consciousness. And so I would say it's not so much a wonder that somebody goes to a valley on Earth in the Himalayas, he wants to find it. But if they are really advanced beings there, I think they can kind of, is it a manipulation or protected? Like, don't want to be seen by people which are not ready for it, or which would maybe also harm this place, or. But at least he had, I would say definitely, he has this connection to higher knowledge. I could really feel it was really strong. And also the meditation techniques that was initiated then, and also some healing techniques. And it was really transformative when I did it for 2 years intensely, like every day.
And you said like his presence was really strong, or?
Yeah, I met him several times. Also, I went to one teacher training with him. This was in Switzerland, so in the Alps, in the mountains, so a beautiful area also. Kind of Himalayan-like, now I think, when I mention it, because kind of, it's like, sometimes the yogis say the Himalayas of Europe are the Alps, you know.
Yeah.
And there it was like two weeks. He called it intensive, and it was really intense. Yeah, it had different levels. I attended the first level only, but it was so much. So his presence, as you ask, it was really. Yeah, I felt really there's a person sitting or standing in front of me. He's really, kind of beyond, you know, like. Also when he was speaking about certain subjects, and at one point he was initiating us in a special protective mantra technique, which is called a kavach or kavacha in Sanskrit. It's like a protective, complicated, complex mantra, and by repetition and by initiation, by hearing it from a master of the technique. So he initiated us, and it took 2 or 3 days. Not all the day, but we did it over 2 or 3 days, repeatedly. Like, this first session was even 2 hours or something, and he repeated these mantras. And I get goosebumps again, you know, because it was really like, I never heard before. And also, I can say, afterwards, I never heard a person in chanting, invocating mantras like this. It was really like, beyond words, you know, or beyond the word somehow. It was really, you could really feel that when he was intonating, when he was like, I think he let it flow intuitively, and sometimes the words, the mantric syllables were kind of changing sometimes in some special ways, but sometimes it was really intense. Like you could feel goosebumps, or you could feel energy moving in your body. There was so much different experiences. We were like 100, it was like 108, and it was funny because 108 participants. And at first there was only 70, 80, and then there was so much demand, and then they made it bigger. And somehow the constellation was, the last information I got was, we have now 108 participants. And 108 is really like a holy number. Maybe they ended it then, the deadline, also because it's a beautiful number.
Yeah.
Because it's a special number for in the Vedas, or even in other traditions, but especially in the Vedas. And then it was really what was happening with this 100 people in a room, and he was doing with amplifiers. You could hear it really well and sitting in a meditative state. Sometimes we should repeat, but the first way we should just hear it. And it was really one of the most spiritual or energetic, intense experience I ever had in my life. I still have the recording, but the thing is, it was only for teachers, so I'm not allowed to give it away. So I was not permitted because it was quite for an esoteric group in the true sense of the word, for a smaller group, to give a special mantra. And then later on, a few years later, I made a recording for myself. And I was showing parts of it to some good friends, sometimes, not the whole mantra, but, and it's really, it was really amazing. So he was really, when I met him, he was really one of my best teachers I had, who had the most influence, transformative influence of his teachings, the techniques I did, and also with his presence. So, but I think I just saw him maybe 4 times or maximum 5 times, not so much.
It can still be as powerful as sometimes staying years with another person.
Yeah, that's true.
If he knows what to do, and I think he knows what to do, then it doesn't
matter
matter that much.
He exactly knew how the things work. At least he had a really high understanding, really beyond what I would say many teachers have. What, at least my intuition or my experience, so to say. I mean, I can never speak for, I haven't seen everything, or there's so many things, and I would say there's so many, kind of different ways to do things, and also to achieve spiritual awareness and enlightenment more and more.
I think this is a good point to end the podcast at. But before we do that, I know you wrote some books. I know you have some internet presence, I believe. Do you want to say, you're doing a lot. You're doing the mantra singing. I don't know if you still do the past life, or the visionary healing. You wrote some books.
I never did it professionally, so maybe in future it will come. And I'm a yoga teacher. I recorded several CDs for music, mantra singing, and also mantra intonation, also a little bit, and meditating with mantras, a CD. And now it's downloads. It's a download. So, and also I went in the last years, especially into food-based diet and detox. So I became a detox specialist. Ayurvedic teacher also for 15 years now. So I'm the teacher of an Ayurvedic distance study in Germany. It's called devadas.divinelife, so it's the website, and it's in German. But I also want to start another Ayurvedic distance study, maybe if it wants to happen, but it looks good, with Dr. Robert Moss in Florida, if he wants. So he has this detox clinic and also a school, an online school, in English language and an Ayurvedic course. Because Ayurveda for me, Ayurveda comes from Sanskrit, and it means from Ayus and Veda. Veda means true knowledge, and Ayus means life. So it's just the science of life. And so in this sense, I can also see that whatever is good for your health, or well-being, it can be a part of Ayurveda. So also detox, and actually from ancient times, fasting and detoxing your body is a big practice of Ayurveda.
Devadas, thank you so much for all this. It was a wide ride, and it was very exciting, and I'm really glad you took the time.
And we really deep dived in some subjects too. And thank you so much, Lars, for your questions and for your hospitality and the chance to speak about all these things. Yeah. Thank you so
Sure.
much.
It was my pleasure. And that's it. Awesome. That's the podcast.
Well, I guess I'll keep your secret for now, huh?
It went very different than I thought it would go, but like I'm really, really pleased with how it went.
Yeah. You said it's just spontaneous.
Right.
So like, yeah. It was way longer than we thought.
Yeah.
He asked me like one question after an hour. Yeah, but it's okay, it's good.
It's good.